sitting down with us today, somebody who has their finger on the pulse of Virginia Tech football and Virginia Tech athletics. 24/7 sports reporter for the Virginia Tech football team, Kolby Crawford, a Norfolk native.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Kolby, you're in Blacksburg right now, man. How's the semester been going so far? And welcome on the pod.
Well, first off, appreciate you having me. Semester's going well. Just got back from class, so glad we could sneak this in, obviously, before Virginia Tech and the Monarchs take on this weekend. But yeah, it's been a good semester in the classroom. Not so much on the turf so far, and I think we'll
Yeah.
get into that. So it's definitely been a year. A lot of chat up here about obviously the football team, not in the positive sense that a lot of people were hoping for, though.
Yeah, so I mean, Virginia Tech starting the season 0-2. You kind of, gave the great tease there, right? Old Dominion taking on Virginia Tech in Blacksburg this weekend. Uh, Kind of a weird one because it was announced earlier in the season that Virginia Tech and Old Dominion kind of took some games away from the
Yeah.
from the matchup, especially now they're not coming to Norfolk, right? So when you were kind of hearing whispers about that was going to happen, obviously Power Fives playing or Power Fours playing G4, G5 schools, there's a
Yeah.
lot more to lose for them nowadays. But are you surprised that in-state rivalry kind of isn't going to have the same feel to it like it used to?
I'm not overly surprised. And the writing on the wall had sort of been on this for a while from the Virginia Tech side. Obviously, you talk about in Norfolk, two really big blemishes for the program overall. You want to talk about Justin Fuente, maybe sort of the beginning of the end for him. Obviously, that loss and what Blake LaRusso was able to do on that ODU team
Yeah.
that really special night. And then obviously, we're going to talk about Brent Pry, I'm sure, on this. And his first introduction to Virginia Tech was losing in SB Ballard at Kaufman Field or whatever it's called, Cornblow
Yeah.
Field, I believe. But funny enough, then the following year, Ollie Jennings transfers, and he's sort of the one who made that big play to beat Virginia Tech. But yeah, like you talk about it, it's been years and years of sort of that classic in-state rivalry. But with the evolution of college football and TV contracts, and especially the way the ACC has set up their TV media deals, where it's based on the revenue sharing of how many views you get, it's tough because you go down, you play ODU last year, you're on ESPN Plus, you're not drawing as big of a viewer share. And then also, like you said, there's a lot to lose. You lose that ODU game and you sort of start crumbling back down from everything. So
Yeah.
I don't think they were surprised. They were always trying to find a way to work with obviously the admin over at ODU as well to find a way to cut some of those games. Obviously not going there. I know they still obviously have one scheduled up here in Blacksburg, but I know I definitely got a lot of pushback from people down in Norfolk on seeing that. And at the end of the day, yeah, they'll always be able to hang their hat on those two really massive victories at home, probably the two biggest wins ever in that stadium,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. So, no big surprise. It is a shame. It's just the way college football is going that, like, the AD right now with Babcock's hands were kind of tied because that's just sort of a dead spot in the schedule. Like, to go down, it obviously to travel the entire team and everything down to Norfolk, 4 hours across the state. It's like
Right.
diminishing returns, not only when you look at the TV contract side, but also, what's happened in years past. So, yeah, and years like I know they always wanted to try. Even last year, they were trying to cancel the game as soon as last year and get an FCS opponent to have that seventh home game. But yeah, there's a lot of indecision over in the admin right now. So we'll see how that shakes out.
So, kind of talking about the matchup this week a little bit. Old Dominion coming into this one, 1-1. They just blew out North Carolina Central, a
Yeah.
MEAC school, so they're 1-1 on the year, 54-6. So dominant after losing to Indiana in Bloomington week one. Virginia Tech 0-2 to start the year. They came up against two SEC schools. I thought the South Carolina game, though they lost the game, you were in Atlanta, right?
Yes, I was there.
So, I mean, I thought even though they lost the South Carolina game, that was going to age into a better loss as the
Yeah.
season went on for both Virginia Tech and then a good win for South Carolina because I thought Virginia Tech was going to kind of rebound heading into the home opener against Vanderbilt. And it looked like that was going to happen after the end of the first half. They were up 10, and then Vanderbilt just totally boat races them in the second half. So what's happening?
Yeah. I think that's a really great question. Great question. And we'll start with Virginia Tech before we get into ODU. But
Yeah.
like you said, you go down to South Carolina. You're in Atlanta for that first game, and you see signs of life against a really good team. Obviously, you know what Lenore Sellers is. You hear all the Heisman hopeful, but you know that's good quality opponent across the other side. And they had that first drive where they rode down and they just pretty much pile drove Tech's defense. And then after
Yeah,
that, brand new defensive coordinator Sam Sifkis, I thought called a great game. Now they
he
had the
did.
punt return, which shows up in the box score of 24 points, but overall, I think that defense played really well against a dynamic unit. Then you come home, like you said, you're up 10-0 after the first quarter. At the half, you're up 20-10. Great crowd in Lane Stadium. Obviously, there's still a lot of up, just fan base being upset, unrest, but still they're there. They're bought in for like one last home opener. Haven't lost a home opener since 2015. Brent Pryce 1-6 in his last 7 games, 16-23 overall now, and it's just that was sort of the gotta have it moment. Up 10, SEC opponent, get everyone behind you going into ODU, and then 34 points in the second half. Like
It's
I filmed a video
wild.
after. I know, just unanswered at home in Lane. Like just absurd. And then when you even look at the rushing breakdown, like I have it in front of me, outgained 307 to 21 in the second half. And so and it was -4 there for a while until that garbage time drive. Like it's really sort of hard to comprehend. Like the hardest thing for me was I was walking out and I was filming a video and I messed up the final score because they scored like 34 in the second half, 5 touchdowns, 5 drives, unmitigated, really. And Vanderbilt, they
Yeah.
really tried to stop themselves. They have a young offensive line. Half those drives, there were false starts, holding penalties, backing themselves up, and it just didn't matter. Like they took what they want, and it was the offense did them no favors. Virginia Tech's offense was 3-and-out, so just kept the defense on the field, and it was just really, really a tale of two halves and a collapse like I haven't really seen before. And there's obviously a lot of heat now coming out of that, and it was just all phases just wasn't good enough. Coaching obviously was not to par, and there's going to be questions asked ahead of it. And then, like shifting to what you just said about ODU, you play Indiana extremely tough on the road in Bloomington. I think a lot of positive signs. Colton Joseph has that dynamic run against what is
Yeah.
expected to be an Indiana team, a good Indiana team. Then you go back home, you boat race North Carolina Central. Colton Joseph shows you what he can do. I mean, I was really high on him going into the season, and people thought I was
Yeah.
sort of crazy. And you really see the dynamic ability with him. I forget who it was. It was a defensive player last year, and he compared him, obviously completely different, but compared him a little bit to Johnny Manziel in play style, as a guy who's just out there, a dog. The team gets behind him, and like Tech fans are so caught up in the moment of right now Vanderbilt, and they should be. And there's a lot of heat, like talked about in the admin in the Merriman building down the street here. But like you can't look past his ODU squad. Like you've dropped games before him. People want to say like Pry's first game was a loss to ODU, and they're already clamoring that this could be his last game if a loss to ODU. So
Yeah.
um, it's a really good team. You saw the line opened at 10 today. It's down to like 7.5. This is I don't think anyone should look past this game.
I always wanted a high-paying career, but I didn't want to be stuck at a desk. In just 4 months, Tidewater Community College taught me how to drive a truck. The pay is great, and I have the independence I've always wanted. They helped me with financial aid and showed me how to enroll. TCC even helped me find a job. Now I'm on my way. Tidewater Community College. From here, go anywhere.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw your video that you posted pretty much toward the end of the Vanderbilt game, and it was empty. I mean, like
Yeah.
Lane Stadium was filed out because they were
hmm
checked out of that game. So I wanna kind of talk about the Old Dominion Virginia Tech matchup
hmm
in its core, right? Because you kind of hit the nail on the head talking about how Old Dominion has played these past 2 weeks. Obviously, stuff to work on from the Indiana game.
Yeah.
They didn't win, right? But I feel like every season for the past couple of seasons that they've opened up against Power Four opponents, whether it be Tech where they won, right, or then
Yeah.
South Carolina where they took them right to the brink, and they should have beaten South Carolina
Last year, I know.
They should have beaten them, and then Tech, or no, sorry, not Tech, and then they go to Indiana and they play competitively, like you said, against Indiana. Now, granted, Colton Joseph, outside of those two 75-plus-yard rushing touchdowns, they didn't have a snap inside the opposing 50 in Indiana's
Yeah.
territory the entire game.
And a couple bad decisions there. Like he
Yes.
threw a couple balls that he shouldn't have, but at the same
Couple
time,
picks.
you sort of got to live with that. Live in fire,
Yes.
die in the fire.
So, in your mind, going into Old Dominion Virginia Tech this weekend in Blacksburg, what's the biggest key to watch out for? Because I think now with Jason Henderson stepping away from football,
Yep.
now obviously that's the breaking news of the week for Old Dominion. Ricky
Yep.
Ronnie talked to the media this morning. I'm sure it was mentioned, right? So with him stepping away, you lose a piece in the linebacking core. But Koen still a very strong piece if he's able to
Great
return
player.
for this game.
Yeah.
He was injured to start the season on crutches at media day, but he's still kind of like a week-to-week player, says he wants to play at some point this season. If they can insert him into the mix, especially for this week, and get him back on the linebacking core, that's a big deal. They were top 30 in red zone defense last season, so they're really good about not kind of bending but not totally breaking as you come in. And Tech's offense really hasn't shown this season that they can march you down the field in the pass game and gash you in the red zone and get in. So is that the biggest matchup to watch out for, the red zone defense of Old Dominion versus the inability to get into the red zone and the end zone for Virginia Tech?
I think you bring up a lot of really great points. I think ODU has shown the ability to have a great red zone defense, and I think Tech has shown the ability to not convert good drives into touchdowns. John Love, I think, is probably going to be an NFL kicker one day when it's all said and done, and he's a great asset to have. You got to have a great special teams unit, but this team is settling for field goals at a much too high clip. I think that's a really great point, is seeing that battle in this game. If they're able to convert on some of those drives or actually convert and pay it off with those touchdowns, that'll be super big. Also, you talk about the linebacking core, and like, all respect, obviously Jason Henderson, All-American linebacker. Tough situation there to end his football. I mean, but he'll always be an ODU legend. They've got a great linebacking core, a little banged up, but I think the biggest thing to watch is along the trenches. Now it's big to say like games are won and lost in the trenches, but for Virginia Tech, you talk about injuries for ODU. Virginia Tech is very banged up along that offensive line. Lost left tackle Johnny Garrett right before the half of Vanderbilt, and I think that might have been an inflection point in that game when he went out. Air sort of got sucked out of it. They were down there at their own, or their opposing 35-yard line, still like 30 seconds. Just, do we go for the touchdown or field goal here? Once he came out, it was sort of like, all right, let's just get the field goal here and go into halftime. And you saw that. There were a lot of issues in the second half, but definitely that offensive line not being able to protect at all, massive issue. He's out. Montavious Cunningham starting at right guard's a little banged up. And then their top two reserve guys, Brody Meadows and Jaden Muskrat, haven't been available this year. Brody Meadows doesn't sound like he's going to be back anytime soon. So now you're relying on redshirt freshman guys who saw their first live bullets against Vanderbilt, against a pretty good overall ODU front. So are they going to be able to protect? Is Kyron Jones going to have time back there to make decisions? I think that's a really big thing. And on the other side of the ball, you talk about South Carolina. I think the biggest strength coming out of that game for Virginia Tech was the defensive line. Now against Vanderbilt, the defensive line got pushed around and pretty much sort of taken out to lunch. Like Pavia and that Vanderbilt took a lot of flyers in the portal on really big body offensive linemen. And ODU doesn't exactly have that same build, just physical, height, weight, speed when you look at the offensive line, but they have some guys who have some experience. And will this defensive line bounce back? Because against South Carolina, they look like a really dominant group, rotated like 12 guys, stayed fresh the entire game. Against Vanderbilt, they got no push, no pressure, didn't contain gaps, didn't contain edges. And are they going to be able to bounce back? Because the back end showed its really weaknesses against South Carolina and Vanderbilt, but if you can't get push up front, the back end is really exposed. So it's just because there's so many weak points. Like there's a 2-game sample size, and you look at Vanderbilt. There's no positives really to take away from that second half, and it's like, can this defense just come back and look like you want to play football? Like, can they just shake that off? Because that's hard to do. Everyone's hearing the noise right now. They look at the film. They got dog walked at home, and it's like, can you just come out revitalized with 50 new players, 30 transfers, 20 high school guys who, they don't really know this level yet? Are they bought in? Do you come out? Is the locker room still there? Are you still energized? I think you just come out and you play with passion for 4 full quarters. I think that's the biggest thing, along with sort of the trench play. But you do bring up a good point in the red zone, because if you can't convert there, and ODU pops a couple big plays on offense, which Colton Joseph, he's going to get his. Like
he's proven he can do. Yep.
You're going to see the decisions that Ronnie probably doesn't like to see, interception, whatever, trying to make a play. But at the other side, you're going to get the boom bust with him. And he's going to get his against, he's shown it against really quality opponents. So if they make those plays and Tech can't convert and get out of their own way, it could get ugly pretty fast in lane.
Well, and the other thing too, Tech last season was arguably Old Dominion's worst loss in terms of the margin of scoreline. Yeah. And so when Tech came to Norfolk, they handled them. Granted, Tech doesn't have Antoine Power Island anymore. He had 4
and
sacks
that was a
in
game
that
of 2 halves too. Like Virginia Tech had
halves.
some recruits in the stands just because they were locally at Tidewater, and a lot of those guys left at the half. Because I mean, ODU, at the half was very dominant in that game. And I know
Yeah.
HBR did what he did in the end. I think he had 4 sacks in the second
Facial
half.
Tootin was really strong too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They ran away with it. But I mean, that was a tale of two halves. Like this is a quality team from a year ago where if you look, if they didn't come out of the half any differently, ODU could realistically come out and won that game last year. So yeah.
So did you expect the impact of the offense to be so different? Obviously, Jalen Lane, Bashal Tootin, two NFL caliber players.
Yeah.
We're seeing it already, right? So did you expect, I guess, the dip in production, especially because Drones is back now. And
Yeah.
there was a little bit of a quarterbacking carousel toward the end of the season, but Virginia Tech's offense still found a way to produce numbers in the back half of the year. Did you expect with Drones coming back for there to be this kind of fall off offensively?
I don't think anyone expected Kyron Jones to have the start of the season that he's had. It's his third year in the program. Obviously, a brand new offensive coordinator, new system, new scheme. But he tell you himself, like the quality of play right now is just not to the standard to win college football games. And a lot of the games, there's a lot of throws left out there, and like that's not to excuse the offensive line and other skill position guys not giving full effort or MAs on different plays, but it's just not to the level right now. And he was banged up last year, but the progression just it isn't where you would think. You know, being a 3-year starter now at Virginia Tech, it just hasn't been there. And then, like you mentioned, you bring in a brand new offensive coordinator, Philip Montgomery, and he's seen a lot of football, but he's been out of the college game. And you know, even at the end of the Vanderbilt game, you sort of just have to scheme and help your guys out a little bit. He's getting pretty much zero blitz on every play. Your offensive line's banged up. Just like you got to make a foundational change in that moment to give everyone a break, bring in an extra blocker, hot route, um, just alleviate some pressure. And you sort of had to expect this. You had some returning guys like Aiden Green, someone who's been in the program out at wide receiver, returning skill position guy, but so much is new. Donovan Green, Cam Seldon, Isaiah Spencer, Marcellus Hawkins, all your running backs. You talk about losing Bashal Tootin. You don't just replace Bashal Tootin in the transfer portal. So they bring in a bunch of guys there, and they're all still trying to figure it out. So the fall off has been very abrupt, but you were hoping that you were going to get consistency woven and pulled back together by Kyron Drones, sort of to be that constant rock. And that play really hasn't been there, and it's been hard to rally the other guys around him. He saw flashes in the South Carolina game, some contested catches, giving them opportunities, but against Vanderbilt, that first drive, I thought when they were on script was really, really good from Kyron. But then you even saw the missed throw to Benji Gosnell that could have almost been a touchdown. Braden Bennett there at the end, if you give him a more catchable ball, that could have been a touchdown. So different plays like that. And then once they got off script and Vanderbilt got rolling and a little banged up on the offensive line, they just couldn't dig themselves out of that hole.
So give me from both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
Because being a Norfolk native, right, growing up in this area with
Yeah.
Granby, right?
Granby High School, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So you went to Granby, you're from Norfolk, you go to Virginia Tech, so you know kind of both sides of the coin a little bit of this. You've already seen an Old Dominion win over Virginia Tech, multiple, in fact, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, arguably two of the biggest wins in program history, if not the two biggest wins in program history on that field. And then on the other side of the coin, Virginia Tech, a home game, the fans just saw them get boat raced at home. What would it do, a win like this, especially with the schedule change between Virginia Tech and Old Dominion in the future? What would a win for Old Dominion do for them? What would a loss for Virginia Tech do for them?
I mean, let's start off with the winners first. We'll talk about in this theoretical the winners first. For ODU, I don't see how it couldn't be the largest win in program history. I know it's not at home in Norfolk, but to go onto the road, especially like you just mentioned, with the turmoil of the canceling the schedule and already feeling like you're running scared away, to get that win, especially for Ricky Ronnie and cement like I'm here to stay. You know, I know there have been issues in the past, but if he wins that game, no matter how ever I think the Sun Belt shakes out, that gives him a couple years at least. So massive for the program because to still go on the road to a Power Four team and do that, and if they win the way that I think they could, that would be massive for everyone at the ODU admin and sort of be like, all right, you want to cancel all these games, not come to us, we'll go to you and beat you. And then shifting to Virginia Tech, if Virginia Tech drops this one to ODU after what's happened and the writing's on the wall, a lot of things will get expedited over there. And the admin side of having to find new leadership, the coaching side having to find new coaches, and it's going to get really ugly because it's already really bad the way things are shaking out. But if you lose at ODU to home and what's not going to be a sold out Lane Stadium, it's going to be for any fans wanting to come up from Norfolk. I'm sure you can find tickets for very, very reasonable prices
Wow.
and get pretty good seats. So it's going to get hot seat talk is already warm. It's
Yeah.
like yesterday I was making mac and cheese and I put a little too much water in the pot and it was boiling and it started coming over the sides. And I think it's going to be past that. I think like it's going to be coming
Okay.
through the floor, melting the floor. It's not going to be pretty.
Well, they just
And
talked about it after the Vanderbilt game in the post game presser. I'm sure you were in the room or you
yep,
heard it as soon as it happened. One of the reporters asked Brent Pry, Vegas has you as which is crazy. Vegas has lines on you as the
yeah,
first head coach to be fired this season, and people are saying that this is the hottest job in terms of the hot seat, but also the hottest commodity because you're probably going to get fired first. How do you feel
yeah.
about that, right? And he's like, I'm not worried about my job, anything like that, but do you think that a loss to ODU is like that's it?
I mean, yeah. I was talking earlier with someone. I don't see how Brent Pry can live beyond a loss to Old Dominion at home after the way the start of the season's gone.
Do you expect Virginia Tech to beat Old Dominion this weekend? Do you expect them to go 1-2 and then kind of start to pick up the pieces? Because once you get one win, this can
Yeah.
snowball in college football. Do you expect them to beat Old Dominion and kind of start to pick up the slack a little bit?
James, to be honest with you, man, I'm really on the fence. Like people know me, especially on the boards. Like whoever watches this, like if you follow me on VT Scoop, you sort of know me as the eternal optimist. Now that sort of waned a little bit, but I'm really on the fence. The way this line's going, and it's just you don't know what you're going to get when this team comes out of the locker room. Like I think Ronnie's going to have the guys ready to go. I believe in Colton Joseph. I know there's the downside, but this is a guy who can just go and make plays, and for good or for worse, it looks like a Texas high school football quarterback going out there just gunslinging. And it's like you're going to take your lumps, but at the same time, you're going to get those big plays. And I just don't know how Virginia Tech's going to come out. We'll get a better idea later in the week. You think the guys are still bought in, but if you come out flat like that against a team like this, like the line is dropping. This is a quality opponent that you can't overlook. Um, at the end of the day, I don't know. Our predictions will come out on Friday officially. I've been really on the fence today, just thinking about it. I think Virginia Tech has to win this game, right? Like you would think,
Right.
but like I really don't know. You talk about Brent Pry for all how tumultuous his tenure has been. He hasn't started out 0-2, and now you're looking at 0-2, and it's just like it is pretty crazy that you could have the potential of dropping 0-3 with a loss to ODU, and I'm not sure. Right now on Monday, I'm going to say Virginia Tech wins in a close one, but then at the same time as I'm saying that, Brent Pry hasn't shown the ability to win close games down the stretch. So I'm still going to take Virginia Tech as of right now, but I think ODU is going to give them a very good run for their money. And even like a dominant win, like does a dominant win do even much for you? Like even if Virginia Tech comes out and wins 30 by 30, does that
Which
really?
I do not think is going to
Neither
happen
do I.
at
Neither do
all.
I. But
No.
does that? I don't agree with that either. But does that even invigorate the fan base? I'm just talking theoretical. Like, does that get fans excited? And then you go and that they just announced it's a noon kickoff for Wofford, and you win that game, and then you go down to NC State. Like you said, snowballing, but I think it's just tough, especially the way the Vanderbilt game happened. If you went out and you just lost straight up, that's like okay, you're
You
up
lose by
20 to
six
10.
points, nine
Yeah,
points, something like
exactly.
that.
But
Yeah.
like you're up 20 to 10 at halftime and 34 to nothing. Five touchdowns, five drives, just completely sustained. They didn't punt. Like it's not good up here. And even just talking through it, like I'll be going live later and talking about this, but there is a lot of pressure, and ODU could cement themselves in Virginia Tech history even more so than they already have if they come up and handle business in Blacksburg on Saturday.
Do you feel like there's a little bit of an opportunity for a quarterback shift around here if Jones doesn't play well against Old Dominion? Because I
I
mean,
mean, people,
there was a quarterback
yeah,
last year, right? Pop. I
yeah,
mean,
Pop Watson.
he had a really solid close to the season. So, is there a conversation about maybe Pop slides in if Jones doesn't play well against Old Dominion?
Yeah, I mean, people obviously the backup quarterback's always the most popular man around town, and it's been like that on the message board. And early on, it was like, well, Kyron Drones, the staff feels gives him the best chance to win, but at some point, you have to just go. And like right now, they still think Kyron Drones gives him the best chance to win. They're going to roll with him, but at some point, it's like you have to throw something out there. Now, do you put Pop Watson behind that makeshift of an offensive line? He's a little bit of a smaller quarterback,
Yeah.
5'10", just a little over 200 pounds. Does that give you the best chance? I don't know. But, like I was talking to someone earlier, in this new era of college football, the most important employees, as you would call them at a school, or president, AD, head football coach, and then your quarterback. And that it sort of rides the ship. Obviously, everyone knows the quarterback's the most important position in football. And if things continue the way they are, you have to just probably get a new look because, yeah, I don't know. I think they'll definitely roll him. Like they rolled him there at the end of Vanderbilt, but they'll start with drones. But I think anything and everything is on the table for this ODU game.
Do you have an X factor player for Virginia Tech?
X factor player. See, I want to say if the offensive line plays well, but honestly, I think it's going to have to be on the defense, along the defensive line. Give me Kamari Copeland and Kelvin
Okay.
Gilliam. If those two guys can get push on the inside of the defensive line, because I think the defense and special teams is going to be how Virginia Tech wins this game. I don't think the offense is just going to go out there and light the world on fire. I think you're going to have to generate turnovers, win the turnover battle, get pressure on Colton internal, and make him go out. Like if those guys can get push against this offensive line, I think that's an X factor. They're going to have to get some turnovers, maybe defensive score. That's what I'm thinking right now.
Colby Crawford, VT Scoop, 24/7 Sports. We appreciate you kind of breaking down everything with Old Dominion, Virginia Tech, and then giving us a scoop on the Hokies. Brent Pry on the hot seat, mac and cheese boiling over on the water. So we appreciate you, man. We will tap in for another episode of Sportswrap Sit Downs. But for now, I'm James Cataldo. See you on the next one.